So one challenge some people experience is that as we lean into spiritual growth and formation, it draws our focus inwards and maybe away from mission. How would you help your church see this connection, and holding this balance of action and contemplation kind of together in an integrated whole? How do we hold those two things together?
Yeah, I think they go together. They have to go together. It's like, as you say, disciple making disciples. It's kind of like we talk about and we share the things that we love and we're passionate about. There's things, I don't have to struggle to invite people to open a Monzo account or, to join my gym. It's like I'm enthusiastic about those things, and it's like really easy. And faith is similar, but unless you've had that transforming experience, unless you actually know, you're in that place of knowing how much you're loved and being able to respond to that. Unless you've got something to share, then the mission is never gonna work.
Yeah, and I think linking back to the practice question, they speak about upstream and downstream practices, those that are more naturally accessible to some of us, and then some that are naturally not accessible. So what's natural for my personality makeup might not be the same that are for Benita's, but we need to be practicing all of them, and I think actually action and contemplation, the practices are across those, and so I need to work a little bit harder at the upstream ones. They just feel so much harder for me to go along with. So my personality type might find it very easy. For me particularly, growing up in South Africa, I'm used to being around people quite diverse to me, different cultures, maybe even people from different socioeconomic backgrounds. So if there's an invitation to go serve on the estate, I'm happy, very comfortable doing that. But maybe to spend half a day in a silent retreat is much harder for me. So I might only do the silent retreat once a year, but I might be more available for the estate ministry regularly, and hopefully over time, those will shift as I grow. But yeah, the ones that are the upstream ones are harder for me naturally to do, and the downstream ones, it just feels like they're not even effort. Worship for some people are just so easy, community is so easy, but for others it's hard work, and that
is really important. I think that's one of the things that I often, because people have the psychological categories now, and so I think sometimes sort of challenging them gently, probably more gently than I do it, but challenging them gently is like, people will say, oh, I'm an introvert, so I just need all of this contemplative time. And it's like, yeah, you do. And you need to spend time with other people, probably more than you realise. Or people will say, oh, so I'm an extrovert, I can't just pray quietly. Yeah, fine, you do need some one-to-one time with just you and God, or you won't have any kind of relationship worth having. And so it's like, it's really important, and increasingly I think where people sort of self-define as what they can or can't do, I think sometimes just giving, calling people into something which is bigger and encompasses both the things that are easy and the things that are hard is really important.
That's really helpful. Sometimes it feels that the practices, to some people would describe the practices, if we're not careful, it feels like this is an individual thing, and it is almost project self. I think what you're saying is no, it's definitely not that. It often feels to me that I'm being told, Matthew, you need to get out there and evangelize, get on the streets, do this, do that. We've got to grow the kingdom, we've got to get the word out. And that maybe is particularly in more of an evangelical tradition. Yet I know if I am not living this myself, that is a very brittle thing, a very fragile thing to be doing. How do we get that balance right again, where we are inviting people to get out of the church and share their faith, but recognizing that if we are not transformed people with a living relationship with Christ, that is very hollow.
I would say there's a journey of discipleship whereby that practice of the presence of God makes a person more simple, and I mean that in the doctrinal sense, without parts, without passions, so that when they are performing the rituals or disciplines of the faith or out in the world, they become one person. A beautiful vision of a discipleship that helps us to bridge that gap between contemplation and mission without contradiction, a well-formed person. But I think it just takes, firstly, the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, the Spirit's great power, time, and patience from us church leaders to let it happen in its time.
So maybe patience is an important thing for us to reflect on here.
Yeah, with ourselves, with others.
Yeah, I think with formation and mission, like mission doesn't just look like one thing. For example, just like preaching on the streets or something. But maybe we can find that balance if we kind of bring mission into our everyday. So like we often share lots of stories at church of like people creating Christian networks in their workplace, or starting an alpha in their workplace, or praying for their family member and seeing them come to faith. So I think that there's something about in our daily lives sharing Jesus and sharing mission, or being a part of the mission, perhaps brings those two things together. So it's not just a empty practice, but something that we're living out daily.